Hilchos Naarah Besulah Perek Shlishi, the laws of the virgin girl, chapter 3. Today we're going to be discussing what's called the Motzi Shemra, the man who slanders his wife. And before we go into the Rambam, let's take a look at the portion of the Motzi Shemra in the Torah. We'll get the full description of the Torah on this topic, and then it's going to be very easy to appreciate, as the Rambam describes, the halachas practically that emerge from this part of the Torah. So this is straight from Parshat Ki Teitzei, the portion of Ki Teitzei in the book of Devarim. Says the Torah, Ki yikach ish isha, uva eleha usnea. A man marries a woman, he has relations with her, and now he resents her. Why does he resent her? Because he doesn't like how she looked, or whatever it is. So he makes up a story. Besam la alilot devarim. He makes up a libel. V'hotzi aleha shemra, and he spreads a bad name about her. Ve'amar, and he says, and he has to say this in the presence of the court. He goes to the court and he says, Et ha'isha azot lakachti, va'ekrav eleha, v'lo matzati la betulim. I took this woman, I came close to her, means I had relations with her, and I found her not to be a virgin. This is his accusation in the court. And of course, as the Rambam will explain it, the accusation is more than that. He's not just saying I didn't find her to be a virgin. I believe that she committed adultery between the time that I gave her the ring and we consecrated the marriage and the time that I consummated the marriage, between Kiddushin and Nisuin. I believe she committed adultery. That's what he's accusing her of doing. Because if a man simply goes into a marriage and says, I don't find my wife to be a virgin, I believe she was sleeping around before, that we dealt with in the laws of marriage. Because the whole depends on what they say, what the accusation is. This is a specific time frame. He's saying between the consecration and the consummation, I believe my wife was adulterous. So now, who's going to stand up for this girl? This girl is still a Naarah. She's still a youth. She's in her father's jurisdiction. Says the Torah, "V'lakacha viha Naarah v'ima." The father and the mother of the girl now take their evidence. V'hotziu et betulei ha'Naarah el ziknei ha'ir hashara, and they bring out the virginity of the girl in front of the elders. So Talmud debates what this means. One opinion says literally, they go and find the sheet where they had relations and prove that there was blood to show that there was virginity. Others say, and the Rambam learns this practically, they have to bring proof to discount the husband's testimony. The father of the girl tells the elders, listen, I don't believe my daughter was wrong. I gave my daughter to this man. He simply hates her. He made up a libel saying, I didn't find any virginity to your daughter. Whereas here, check it out, court, check it out, judges. Here is the virginity of my daughter. And again, either it means literally, he brings out the sheet, or he brings testimony. They spread out the cloth.
What kind of testimony?
We'll see in the Rambam what the testimony is. They're going to spread the cloth in front of the elders. They literally spread it out. We're not done yet. There's not a screen. It's a bit of a long portion in the Torah. Then the Torah says, the elders of the city take the man and they pain him. They punish him, which means lashes. They give him lashes. Plus, you can see here, they punish him a fine of 100 coins. We didn't start the Rambam inside yet. I'm still reading from the Torah here. They punish him 100 coins. Unlike yesterday, the rapist and the seducer, only 50 coins. This man pays 100. And they give it to the father also. Because he has put a bad name on the girl. And again, counterintuitively, like by the rapist, we keep them married. As a fine for putting a slanderous report about her, imagine if the word gets out, no one's going to want to marry her. So this guy has to stay married to her and keep providing for her, of course assuming that she wants. And he cannot send her away. Now what if the husband's accusations were true? Says the Torah, if it was truth and they couldn't find any virginity, then she meets a tragic end. She's executed by stoning because she literally committed adultery as a married woman. She was married. When you get a ring, you're already consecrated. So she will be stoned. She did a very disgusting act to be adulterous in the house of her father. And you will destroy all bad from amongst you. So there's always two potential results if a man accuses his wife of not having virginity. Either he will be disproven and he'll be fined, lashed, and forced to marry her, or he'll be proven right and she will be executed. That's the two ways a motzi shem ra can go. Now let's look inside the Rambam, and we will see how everything pans out in the actual Jewish law. Says the Rambam halacha aleph hamotzi shem ra al bas Yisrael. If somebody spreads a false report, a bad report on a Jewish girl, v'nimtza hadavar sheker, and the matter turns out to be false, loike, he gets lashes, shenemar, as it says in the portion we just read, top line over here, in the blue letters, v'yisru oisoi. They will punish him. Now, if you noticed in this entire portion that we read, it doesn't say anywhere, don't make a false statement about your wife. In the Torah, in order for you to get lashes, there has to always be what's called an azhara. Azhara means an explicit language in the Torah that warns against this act. So where do we find this guy warned not to make false statements that he's getting lashes? Says the Rambam, the azhara shaloi miloi selech rachil be'amecha. The warning against this can be found in a different verse in the book of Vayikra, where it says, do not go around gossiping amongst your nation. When a man accuses his wife slanderously of not having virginity, essentially what he's doing is he's gossiping. So this is where the Torah says don't do it. And if he does it, it puts us in the right to give him lashes. Additionally, besides for getting lashes, mishkal slayim kesef mezukak. He gives the father of the girl 100 pure silver coins. Unlike in those days that Rambam says that silver was only 1/8. A silver coin was only 1/8, so you have pure silver coins, 100 pure silver coins. As the Torah says, you see it over here. You give it to the father. If she was an orphan, then she gets the money herself. She has no father here to take the money. She gets the fine herself. Now, like we had yesterday with the rapist, these laws only apply in a specific time frame. If somebody spreads a false rumor on a minor girl or on a girl once she reaches full majority, remember this, when the girl's born, she's called the katana. When she first produces physical signs of puberty, she becomes a Naarah for 6 months. And after 6 months, she becomes a bogeret. So this is a very short time frame that a person has to spread this bad rumor. If he spreads the bad rumor over a girl who's minor or over a girl who's fully major, since the Torah's expression is only Naarah, these laws do not apply. Potter min haknas min hamalko, says the Rambam. One is exempt from the fine and from lashes. And he's not obligated until he spreads the bad rumor over a Naarah, this specific girl in this specific time frame. Shenemar, because it says in the Torah, v'hotziu et betulei hanaara, they will produce the virginity of the girl. And if you look inside a Torah scroll, says the Rambam, Naara mole diber hakasuf. The Torah writes the word Naara in full form. Here is actually a picture from a Torah scroll, the portion we read inside of the Motzi Shemra. Notice every yellow highlight, whenever the Torah writes the word Naara, girl, it leaves out the last hey. See there? All the other ones. Hana'ara, it should say an extra hey at the end. It doesn't. With one exception. And the exception is in this verse over here where it talks about paying the girl. It says, V'natanula avi hana'ara. A full hey. Now, if you notice, the Rambam quotes a different verse. The Rambam says, V'hotziu et betulei hana'ara. Over here. This one, in our Torah scrolls at least, doesn't have a full hey. So the Kesef Mishneh, the primary commentary on the Rambam, says that Rambam indeed meant this verse. He didn't mean this one. He meant this one. And at least over here, we do find the word Naarah being written in full form, which is rare. And that's the Torah's way of communicating to us that this law only applies to an actual young girl. If you step out of that age range, either before or after, and you accuse the girl in that age range, these laws don't apply. It's a special law that applies only to a Naarah. Says the Rambam, Halacha Gimel, Ein donin din zeh, ela bifnei habayis, ubeis din shel esrim u'shleisha. This whole law of the slanderer can only be adjudicated in the times of the Holy Temple in front of a court of 23 judges. The Sanhedrin. Okay, not the full Sanhedrin. You know, in the Holy Temple there was 3 Sanhedrins. There was the main one of 71 judges, but there was 2 side ones, 2 lower level ones of 23 judges. Once you have a court of 23 judges, you're allowed to judge capital cases. So the Rambam says, Motzi Shem Ra, this case can only be judged by a minimum of 23 judges in the temple times. Why? Because there's a potential in the law of the slanderer to reach capital offense. We read it before in the Torah. If it turns out to be, as the husband is saying, his accusation is true, she will be killed. You can only kill somebody in temple times. You can only kill somebody in front of 23 judges. Therefore, the whole case to begin with has to be judged only in front of such a court. But let's say yesterday's law and 2 days ago's law, the law of the rapist and the seducer, you can judge them in any time, not only in temple times, and also in front of 3 judges is enough. Because maximum, it's a monetary case. Maximum, he's going to get to pay a fine or sometimes get lashes. And lashes you can also give in the presence of 3 judges. Hilchos, as will be explained in the 14th book of the Rambam, in the laws of Sanhedrin, laws of Jewish courts. It says the Rambam, halacha dalid, u'mitzvah saseh shel Torah. Besides the lashes, besides the fine, it's also a biblical positive commandment, sheteshev eishes moitzi shemra tachtav lo'elam, that the wife of a woman who was slandered, the wife of a man who was slandered, needs to stay with him forever. Shenemar v'lo yisiya li isha. You can see it over here in the green letters. She will be his for a wife. Afilu iveres mukas shchin. And the idea is, even if she's blind, even if she has boils on her body, point is it's not pleasant, and that's probably why he slandered her in the first place. The consequences are, you're going to stay with her. V'im gersha, if he divorces her, avar aloisase. He has transgressed the negative commandment. That's the next words over here in the red. Shenemar, as it says, lo yuchal l'shalcha kol yamav. You cannot send her away all of your days. Now, like we saw yesterday with the seducer, you can never really punish a guy for divorcing the woman because he can always remarry her. It's called the lav hanitak la'aseh, a prohibition linked or rectifiable by a positive commandment. Oh, very good. Unless it becomes impossible for him to remarry, for example, he's a priest. Let's see what the Rambam says. The kaifin oisai, if he does divorce her, we force him, he must remarry her, but we can't give him lashes. As we explained with the rapist. However, if it becomes impossible to remarry her, if somebody jumped in after he divorced her and consecrates her, or she dies, or he was a Kohen, he cannot marry a divorcee. So now at this point we can give him lashes for divorcing her because there's no way for him to rectify it anymore. Either she's dead, she's remarried, or he's a Kohen. Halacha hey nimtza badvar zima. If an adulterous matter was found with her. An adulterous matter does not mean that it's found to be true what the husband says. That's going to be execution. Here we're talking about she's found to be immodest. There's definitely immodest rumors about her, or maybe before she was married, something negative happened. Or later, after they stay married, now she commits adultery. In other words, anything besides for what the husband is saying. Any type of adulterous behavior besides for what the husband is saying. Or it turns out that she's forbidden to marry him for a different reason. By a dint of negative prohibition or a positive commandment, even if it's only a rabbinic injunction that's forbidding them to be married, then of course he may divorce her with a proper divorce. As it says, she must be to him for a wife, which means she has to be potentially fit for him. A woman who is fitting for him. Now, asks the Rambam, a general question. Question could have been really asked yesterday. How come we don't say the principle of positive commandment pushes away the negative commandment? We discussed this earlier in the laws of Yibam and Chalitza. When you have a positive commandment, it overrides a negative commandment. So here, what do you have? You have a negative commandment from being married to this woman. Let's say for a different reason, she's a mamzeret or whatever. You have a positive commandment saying you must stay married to her. So why doesn't the positive override the negative? Whether when it comes to the slanderer or the rapist, let this man marry the woman who's forbidden to him. Says the Rambam, because it's possible that she won't want to stay married. Thereby you can fulfill both mitzvot simultaneously. And the Talmud actually says, in this case, we would tell the woman to declare, I don't want to be married. In other words, it's not inherently obligatory that the guy stay married to her. There are cases where the marriage will dissolve. So let's dissolve the marriage, and then there won't be a requirement, so you can fulfill both the positive and the negative commandment. Halacha Vav. Let's actually describe the process in halacha of slandering. Ketzad hoitzas shemra. What exactly is the order of slandering a wife? Who it is, and it's very specific. Sheyavi lebeis din v'yomer. The husband comes to court and he says, Naarah zu ba'alti v'le motzasi la besulim. I engaged in relations with this young girl. I didn't find her to be a virgin. Ukeshabikashti ala davar. He has to further claim. When I investigated the matter, noidali, it was notified, it turned out, shezinsa tachtai achar she'erastiha, that she actually committed adultery under my jurisdiction, after I already consecrated her. Ve'elu heim eidai shezinsa bifneim. And here, he must bring to court, here are the witnesses who watched her commit adultery. So it's a three-pronged claim. Number one, I already had relations with her, and I didn't discover to be a virgin. That's A. B, I checked it out, and I actually figured out why she's not a virgin. She's not a virgin because she committed adultery while we were already engaged. And three, I have witnesses. And the court listens to the words of the witnesses and investigates their testimony, as they would for any other witnesses. If it turns out to be true, she's stoned. But if the father can bring witnesses, and here's how the Rambam learns it, the father needs to bring witnesses to counter the other witnesses in a special way. And he canceled by virtue of hazama. He canceled the witnesses that the husband brings. What does it mean, hazama? In the 14th book of the Rambam, we're going to learn there's two ways that one pair of witnesses can counter another pair of witnesses. One is called hakhasha. Hakhasha means contradiction on the testimony. So, two witnesses would say, Reuven killed Shimon. The other two witnesses will say, Reuven did not kill Shimon. That's called hakhasha. The actual testimony is being contradicted. Then there's what's called hazama. Hazama is an attack, not on the testimony, but on the witnesses. Which means, two witnesses come and say, we watched Reuven kill Shimon on Ventura Boulevard, 8 a.m., Sherman Oaks. The other two witnesses come and say, listen, we don't know what happened. Here's what we do know. On 8 o'clock in the morning, you two were having breakfast with us in Pico. So there's no way you could have seen that. Hazama always attacks the witnesses, does not attack the testimony. So the Rambam says over here, it has to be hazama. The father needs to bring witnesses who will cancel the first pair of witnesses by virtue of saying, you were with us. Imanu hayitin, that's the words in the Talmud. You were with us. So, if the father can produce such witnesses, v'nimtza sheheidu sheker, and it will turn out indeed that these witnesses have testified falsely, not because of what they said, but because if they couldn't have been there, they couldn't have seen what they said, yisaklu. In fact, the witnesses, they get stoned. This is called edim zomimin. When witnesses are canceled in a way of hazama, we impose on them the punishment they wanted to give by their testimony. They wanted this girl to be stoned, they're going to get stoned. And because the husband has now been disproven, the husband gets lashes plus giving a fine of 100 silver coins. Says the Rambam. This is the meaning of the verse. Where is it? Here, in the red on the bottom. This is the meaning of the verse. When the father says, these are the virginity of my daughter, it does not mean he's producing some physical cloth or physical evidence. He's bringing witnesses, Elu ha'edim sheyazimu edei habal. These are the witnesses that are going to cancel, by virtue of hazama, the witnesses of the husband. Chazar habal, vehevi edim achedim, behezimu edei ha'av. What if the husband then brings two more witnesses who counter the father's witnesses? So, follow this. The husband's witnesses first say, we saw on Wednesday afternoon this woman committed adultery. The father brings witnesses and says, no, Wednesday afternoon you were having lunch with us somewhere else. And now the husband brings new witnesses and says, no, Wednesday afternoon you were with us at the zoo and you couldn't have seen what you're saying you saw. So now it's a third pair of hazama. So then, Naarah ve'edei aviha niskalin. So, both the girl and now the witnesses of the father, who are also now proven to be false, both get stoned. Al zen nemar. On this is what it says in the end of the portion, V'im emes hoya hadavar hazeh. If the matter was proven true. Proven true doesn't just mean that the husband's original claim was authenticated. It means if the father brought witnesses to counter, and the husband brought witnesses to counter that, then you stone them both. In Piyashmu Lamdu, we learn from oral tradition, Shepar Shazu, that this portion in the Torah, Yesh ba edim, v'zaymimin, v'zaymimei zaymimin. That this portion speaks of a first set of witnesses, a second set of witnesses who canceled the first, and a third set of witnesses who canceled the second. We take it all into incorporation. But that's the bottom line. Bottom line is, either it's going to be true, she'll get stoned, or it'll be false, and he'll get fined and lashed. It says that let's say the husband only got around to slandering his wife when she was a bogeret. She was 12 and a half, already past majority. Even if the witnesses he produced show that she committed adultery while she was still a Naarah, and she would still meet the qualifications of the Torah, if it's discovered that he's saying false, he is exempt from lashes and a fine, because the Torah only talks about accusations that are made when she is a Naarah. However, if it's found to be true, she does get stoned. Even though right now she's a major, since when she did commit adultery, she was a youth. So it works to the husband's favor in both ways. If the accusation is she committed adultery when she was a Naarah, but it's only being made when she is a bogeret, if it's true, good for the husband. If it's not true, also good, he doesn't get fined. It says that any of the 10 women that we learned yesterday do not get a fine if they were raped or seduced. So too, if a man were to spread a false rumor about such a woman, he also wouldn't have to pay or get lashed. Similarly, a non-Jewish girl who converted, or a slave who was freed at the age of less than 3 years old, or even if she was conceived as a non-Jew and born as a Jew, if somebody spreads a false rumor about her, he will be exempt from the fine and from lashes. This is for a different reason. This is because Shanemar, it says in the verse, Ki haitzi shem ra al besulas Yisrael. Where is it over here? The purple letters here. Why are we finding the man? Because he has spread a false rumor on a Jewish virgin girl. Why does it say Besulah Yisrael? Ad shetiya hayrasa v'leidasa b'kedusha. This teaches us that she has to be conceived and born in a state of holiness. It's what's called the Torah is using these words to tell us this law. She has to be Jewish, not converted at a young age. Halacha tes. Here's another case where the husband is exempt. Kidesh Naarah v'gersha. A man had consecrated a girl, divorced her from that consecration, v'chazar v'kitcha, and then reconsecrated her a second time, v'hoitzi aleha shem ra, and now he brings a slanderous report, v'hevi edim shazinsa tachta b'kiddushin harishonim, and he brings witnesses testifying to the fact that she was adulterous in the first consecration. Consecration A, divorce. Consecration B, now he brings witnesses that in consecration A, she was adulterous. And those witnesses were found to be cancelled by virtue of Hazama. Hareza Potter, he is exempt, because you can't bring in one marriage for a different marriage. Similarly, if she would have been the Yivama. Okay, we just came from the laws of Yibum v'Chalitza. A man was married to a woman, he dies childless. Now there's a brother. The brother does Yibum, he marries her. Then he starts bringing accusations from her brother's marriage. And then he makes a bad rumor about her. And he brings witnesses that she was adulterous under the consecration of his brother. And it turns out that they are false. He is exempt from lashes and from payment, because you can only bring a bad report over your marriage, not somebody else's marriage. Any man who is exempt from the fine or from lashes is also exempt from the mitzvah of staying married. If he wants to divorce, he can divorce. Halacha Yud, Einei Chayav, a man is only obligated for spreading a false report. Ad shegiva leisa kedarka v'yotzi shem ra ala beila kedarka. He needs to have relations with her naturally, and also the false rumor that he spreads must be that she was adulterous in the natural way. He needs to accuse her of having natural intercourse before she was married to him. Ba'ala shaloi kedarka v'amar loy mitzasiya besulah. If he only had relations in the unnatural way, but his accusation is that she had relations in the natural way before this, she was actually not a virgin, and he proves that by the witnesses. Potter, he's exempt from payment if he's discovered to be untrue. We can only give him rabbinic lashes, not biblical ones. Yud Aleph, v'chenim amar loy mitzasiya besulah. Similarly, if he accuses her of not being a virgin, but he's not attaching the second prong, that she was adulterous while we were engaged, he simply says that she's not a virgin. I don't know when she did adultery. Or he accuses her of being adulterous under his jurisdiction, but he couldn't bring witnesses. They walked in on their own. He didn't even invite them. They came on their own, and they're discovered to be false. He is exempt from payment. Those witnesses who came voluntarily, if they're going to be canceled, they will get killed. They wanted to stone this girl. But just because they came in on their own to support the husband, doesn't make the husband liable if he's discovered to be lying. And the Rambam concludes, when the Torah says at the bottom here, light blue letters here, that the court they have to spread out the cloth in front of the court, lashon kavod. It's simply a euphemism. Does not mean they bring a sheet and put it out in the court. The Rambam rules, like the other opinion in the Talmud, that it's a euphemism. The court must discuss the hidden matters of this case. Excuse me. Those words before in the red, when the father says, "This is the virginity of my daughter," it's not a physical evidence. It's him saying, "Here are the witnesses who will cancel the witnesses of the husband." And the Torah over here says, in the orange, if it's true, if the matter is true, and she'll be killed, is only if we can produce with witnesses that she committed adultery after the consecration. As it says, in the pink here on the bottom, she committed adultery while she was in the house of her father waiting for marriage. But if all we can prove is that she had adultery, wasn't even adultery, it was before the consecration, she slept around. Before the consecration, Torah says about that the girl is exempt. What about that relations that they had? Well, let's figure out what it was. The man who had relations with her at that time will be obligated with a monetary payment, bein pita, bein anas, whether he had a consensual relationship where he seduced her or he raped her. But that's his business. It has no influence on the later marriage. In the later marriage, we can only execute a girl if she is proven to have committed adultery after the consecration. If we don't have that evidence, then the girl is left free. Brich Rachamana Desayan, blessed is the merciful and granted us assistance, Mazal Tov, for concluding the laws of the virgin girl.